The massive chamber of the Galactic Council had never felt so cold. Admiral Rebecca Hayes stood at the human delegation's platform, watching as representatives from the oldest civilizations in the galaxy delivered their shocking announcements one by one. The Zephyrians spoke first through their crystal bodies that rang like bells when they moved. Their ambassador's voice echoed strangely in the vast hall. The Void Swarm comes from beyond our galaxy. We have decided to close all borders and retreat to our home systems. This decision is final. Rebecca felt her heart sink. The Zephyrians had been humanity's first allies when Earth joined the galactic community 50 years ago. They had shared their crystal technology and helped humans build their first faster-than-light ships. Now they were abandoning everyone. The hive-minded Corvani buzzed their agreement through thousands of connected voices that sounded like angry bees. We agree with the Zephyrians. Survival requires us to protect ourselves first. We will seal our territory immediately. Captain James Mitchell, who stood beside Rebecca, whispered urgently in her ear. Admiral, if the Corvani are pulling back too, what about the trade routes? What about the colonies they promised to defend? Rebecca shook her head grimly. She already knew the answer, but she hoped she was wrong. The ancient energy beings called the ethereals flickered with cold blue light as their representative spoke. Unlike the others, they had no physical body, existing as pure consciousness held together by advanced technology. Their voice came from speakers placed around the chamber. Young species of the galaxy, the ethereal said without any warmth, you must understand the reality of survival. The Void Swarm has already consumed 3 entire star clusters beyond our borders. Billions of civilizations have been absorbed into their collective consciousness. We, the elder races, have survived for millions of years by knowing when to fight and when to hide. What about your responsibilities? Rebecca called out, stepping forward from her platform. What about the protection treaties? The mutual defense agreements? The ethereal's light pulsed brighter for a moment. Treaties are meaningless when extinction threatens. The young will serve as a barrier between the swarm and our core worlds. This is the natural way of things. Rebecca felt anger building in her chest. Around the chamber, she could see the representatives of dozens of younger civilizations looking stunned and afraid. The peaceful Quillen, whose entire society was built around farming and had no military at all. The aquatic Delphine traders, who had never fought a war in their 1,000-year history. The proud Thrakari warriors, who were brave but had old weapons and small ships. One by one, every major power made the same announcement. The machine intelligence called the network would shut down all communication links. The plant-based Vidani would retreat to their forest worlds and grow impenetrable barrier walls. The rock-like granite lords would seal their mountain systems and wait underground. This is madness, Rebecca said, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. 4 to 7 civilizations will be left completely defenseless. Some of them have populations in the trillions. You're condemning entire species to extinction. The ethereal ambassador responded with what sounded like cold amusement. Admiral Hayes, humanity is barely 100 years old as a spacefaring race. You do not understand the weight of deep time. Civilizations rise and fall. The important thing is that something survives to rebuild. And who decides what survives? Captain Mitchell demanded, stepping up beside his admiral. Who gave you the right to choose? Power gives us the right, buzzed the Corvani. We have the strongest shields, the biggest weapons, the most advanced technology. We will endure while others cannot. The Quillen representative, a small green being who rarely spoke at these meetings, stood up on shaking legs. Please, she said in her quiet voice, my people have no weapons at all. We grow food for half the galaxy. If we fall, how will you eat when the barriers come down? The Zephyrian ambassador rang with harsh tones. We will manage. We always have. Rebecca watched in horror as the session continued. Each elder race formally withdrew from all treaties, all trade agreements, all mutual defense pacts. They would keep their advanced technology to themselves. They would share no intelligence about the approaching Void Swarm. They would provide no assistance to anyone outside their closed borders. The barriers will activate in 72 hours, announced the ethereal. After that, no communication will be possible until the threat has passed. And how long will that be? Asked the Delphine ambassador, her aquatic suit making bubbling sounds as she spoke. Perhaps decades. Perhaps centuries. Time has little meaning to us. As the ancient powers filed out of the chamber, Rebecca noticed something that made her blood run cold. They moved with no urgency, no fear, no regret. They had made this decision long ago and felt nothing about abandoning their former allies. The younger civilizations huddled together after the elders left, their representatives talking in frightened whispers. Many were crying. Others sat in stunned silence. A few, like the Thrakari warrior captain, roared in anger but had no target for their fury. "What do we do now?" asked the Quillen representative, her small voice barely audible. Rebecca looked around at all the abandoned species. Farmers and traders, warriors and artists, scientists and philosophers. All left to face an impossible enemy alone while the powerful hid behind their walls. But as she looked at their faces, Rebecca made a decision that would echo through galactic history. These beings were not just statistics or barriers or acceptable losses. They were people, with families and dreams and hopes for the future. "We fight," she said simply. "We fight for each other." Captain David Stone stared at the empty space where Kepler Colony used to be. 3 months ago, 12 billion people had lived and worked in this star system. Now there was only darkness and strange, twisted metal floating in the void. "Sir," whispered Lieutenant Emma Clark from her station, "the scanners are picking up something big moving in that dark cloud." David adjusted his ship's sensors and felt his stomach drop. Through the black mist that had once been a thriving world, massive shapes were moving. They looked like buildings turned inside out, with corridors and rooms that hurt to look at. The Void Swarm had left behind scouts to watch for any survivors. "Get us out of here, quietly," David ordered his pilot. "We've seen enough." Back on Earth, Admiral Rebecca Hayes stood in a room full of angry politicians. The emergency meeting had been going on for 6 hours, and everyone was shouting at once. "We can't save everyone," declared Secretary General Thomas Brooks, slamming his hand on the table. "We have our own colonies to protect. Our own people to think about." 4 to 7 civilizations have been abandoned, Rebecca replied calmly. "Some of them helped us when we were young and weak. The Quillen taught us how to grow food in space. The Delphine shared their medical knowledge. We owe them." "We don't owe them our extinction," snapped Defense Minister Patricia Wells. "The elder races had the right idea. Build walls, hide, and wait for the storm to pass." Rebecca pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked where the Void Swarm had already struck. Yellow dots showed the closed borders of the elder races. Green dots marked the abandoned worlds. "Look at this pattern," she said. "The swarm isn't just attacking randomly. They're moving in a straight line toward the galactic core, where all the elder races are hiding. Every world they consume makes them stronger. If we let them take the outer systems, they'll be unstoppable when they reach the barriers." "That's not our problem anymore," said Economic Advisor Michael Chen. "We have trade deals with the elder races. When this is over, we need their technology and resources." Rebecca felt disgust rise in her throat. "You want to abandon our friends so we can trade with cowards?" "I want humanity to survive," Michael shot back. The argument continued for hours, but Rebecca had already made up her mind. That night, she sent secret messages to trusted ship captains throughout the human fleet. Captain William Turner was the first to respond. His battleship Freedom was patrolling the outer rim when Rebecca's coded message reached him. "Admiral," he replied over the secure channel, "my grandfather fought in the corporate wars. He always said that running from bullies just gets you shot in the back. Count me in." Captain Lisa Morgan commanded a cruiser squadron near the Quillen farming worlds. "These people never hurt anyone," she told Rebecca. "They just grow food and take care of their families. I won't let them die alone." Commander Sarah Phillips led a group of fast attack ships. "The Delphine saved my brother's life with their medical tech," she said. "Time to return the favor." Within 2 weeks, Rebecca had quietly assembled almost half of humanity's active fleet. They met at a secret location in an empty star system, far from Earth's government and the elder race's sensors. "This is treason," Captain Robert Green pointed out during their first meeting. "Earth's government ordered us to defend human space only." "Earth's government is wrong," Rebecca replied simply. "We're not just fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for the idea that good people don't abandon each other when things get hard." The abandoned alien civilizations were desperate for any help. When Rebecca's ships appeared at their worlds, many thought it was a miracle. The Quillen leader, a small green woman named Petra, cried when she saw the human fleet. "You came back," she whispered through her translator. "The others said you would abandon us too." "Never," Rebecca promised. But organizing the alliance was harder than anyone expected. The Thrakari warriors wanted to charge straight at the enemy with honor and glory. The careful Delphine wanted to study the swarm for years before fighting. The Quillen were terrified of any violence at all. "We need to think like humans," Rebecca told her officers. We're good at making different groups work together. It's what we do. Captain David Stone had an idea. What if we don't try to make them all fight the same way? What if we use each species for what they do best? The plan started to take shape. The Quillen would handle supplies and logistics. They were amazing at growing food and organizing complex systems. The Delphine would work on medical support and scientific research. Their knowledge of biology was incredible. The Thrakari would lead ground combat operations. They were the best warriors in the galaxy, even with older weapons. Other species brought their own skills. The Vorthen were excellent pilots. The Crystalline could repair almost anything. The Moss people could hide entire fleets in asteroid fields. But what do humans bring? Asked Commander Phillips during a planning meeting. Rebecca smiled. We bring stubbornness. We bring the crazy idea that nobody should face the dark alone. Meanwhile, reports kept coming in from the outer systems. The Void Swarm was getting closer, and it was getting stronger with every world it consumed. Their scouts had been spotted near several Alliance worlds. The elder races remained silent behind their barriers. No help was coming from them. Sir, Lieutenant Clark reported to Captain Stone, we're receiving signals from 17 more species. They want to join the Alliance. Rebecca felt a mix of hope and terror. More allies meant more strength, but it also meant more people counting on her plan to work. The swarm had never been stopped before. Every battle they had ever fought had been a complete victory. But as she looked at the growing fleet of ships from dozens of worlds, all flying together in formation, Rebecca felt something she hadn't expected. Not just determination or duty, but actual hope. Maybe they were crazy to fight. Maybe they would all die. But they would die as friends, standing together against the dark. And sometimes, that makes all the difference. The assembly hall on New Geneva buzzed with dozens of different languages as representatives from 4 to 7 abandoned species filled every seat. Admiral Rebecca Hayes looked out at the crowd and saw fear in every face. Quillen farmers sat next to Thrakari warriors. Delphine traders whispered to crystalline engineers. All of them had one thing in common: they had been left to die. Rebecca activated the holographic display in the center of the room. The three-dimensional map showed the galaxy with red zones marking where the Void Swarm had already struck. The red was spreading like a disease. The situation is simple, Rebecca announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. We are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Our combined fleets are smaller than what any single elder race could field. By every military calculation, we should surrender now and save ourselves the pain of fighting. Worried murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Quillen representative, Petra, raised her small green hand. Admiral Hayes, if we cannot win, why are we here? Rebecca smiled grimly. Because the elder races made one critical mistake. They forgot that courage grows when it's shared. They've been fighting alone for so long, they don't remember what it's like to have friends watch your back. Commander Sarah Phillips stepped forward from the human delegation. She had spent weeks analyzing every recorded encounter with the Void Swarm. We've studied their attack patterns, she said. The swarm expects civilizations to hide behind barriers or fight in isolation. They've never faced coordinated resistance from multiple species working together. The Thrakari warrior captain, Korvax, stood up with a growl. His translator turned his rumbling voice into words. You speak of coordination. But my people are warriors. We fight with honor, face to face. How do we coordinate with farmers and traders? That's exactly why it will work, Rebecca replied. The swarm thinks they know how we'll react. They expect the warriors to charge forward, the farmers to hide, and the traders to run away. But what if we do something completely different? Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Davis unfolded his battle plans on the display. He had been working on them for weeks, trying to figure out how to turn their weaknesses into strengths. Hit and run tactics, he explained. We use their own momentum against them. When they expect us to stand and fight, we disappear. When they think we're retreating, we attack from behind. The Delphine ambassador clicked her approval through her water-filled helmet. Our people are excellent at biological warfare. We could create weapons that target their organic components. My people know every asteroid and hiding place in 3 sectors, added the Vorthen pilot representative. We can guide your ships through spaces the swarm cannot follow. Petra, the Quillen leader, spoke up again. We cannot fight, but we can feed your armies. We can keep your ships supplied no matter how far you travel. Rebecca felt a spark of hope as she watched the different species begin to work together. This is what the elder races gave up, she thought. This is what they were too proud to remember. But not everyone was convinced. Captain Jennifer Adams from the Human Third Fleet stood up at the back of the room. "Admiral, I respect what you're trying to do, but let's be honest. This is suicide. The Void Swarm has consumed entire galactic clusters. They've never been defeated, not once." "You're right," Rebecca admitted. "It probably is suicide. But it's our choice to make." Korvax, the Thrakari warrior, slammed his fist on his chair. "Better to die fighting beside friends than live hiding behind walls." "Easy words from someone who loves battle," snapped Captain Adams. "What about the civilians? What about the children?" The room fell silent. It was Petra who answered, her small voice somehow carrying to everyone. "Captain Adams, my people have been farmers for thousands of years. We know that sometimes you must burn the old field to make room for new growth. If we hide now, if we let fear control us, what kind of galaxy will our children inherit?" Rebecca looked around the room and saw the change happening. Fear was still there, but it was being joined by something else. Determination. Purpose. The kind of stubborn hope that makes people do impossible things. "Here's what we're going to do," Rebecca announced. "We split into small, mixed-species task forces. Each group will have human coordinators, Thrakari fighters, Quillen support staff, and specialists from other races. We won't try to match the swarm's strength. Instead, we'll be everywhere at once, hitting them from directions they don't expect." Commander Phillips brought up tactical displays. The swarm moves in predictable patterns. They consume a world, absorb its population, then move to the next target. But they leave scouts behind to watch for survivors. We hit the scouts first, blind them, then strike at their main forces when they are spread out. "What about weapons?" asked the crystalline representative, her voice sounding like wind chimes. "Most of our technology is centuries behind the elder races." "We improvise," said Lieutenant Colonel Davis. "Humans are good at making weapons out of whatever we find. The Thrakari know how to fight dirty when they have to. The Delphine can turn medical equipment into biological weapons. We use what we have." As the meeting continued, Rebecca watched something beautiful happen. Species that had never worked together before began forming bonds. Thrakari warriors offered to train Vorthan pilots in combat maneuvers. Quillen engineers shared supply routes with Delphine scientists. Crystalline repair specialists promised to maintain equipment for anyone who needed it. But underneath the growing excitement, everyone knew the truth. They were about to fight the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever seen, and they were doing it with farmer ships, old weapons, and determination. "How long until the swarm reaches the first Alliance worlds?" Rebecca asked. 6 weeks, reported Captain Stone from his reconnaissance ship. "Maybe less." Rebecca nodded. "Then we have 6 weeks to become something the galaxy has never seen before. Not humans, not Thrakari, not Quillen, but something new. Something unified." As the delegates filed out to prepare their fleets, Rebecca remained behind, staring at the tactical display. The red zones were still spreading, and their forces looked pathetically small in comparison. But for the first time in months, she felt genuinely hopeful. The first battle was a complete disaster. Captain Robert Green watched helplessly as his cruiser Determination spun out of control, its engines torn apart by void swarm weapons that looked like twisted metal snakes. Around him, the defense of Vera Prima mining colony was falling apart. "Hull breach on Deck 7, shouted Lieutenant Emma Clark from her station. "We're losing life support." Through the viewscreen, Robert could see the swarm ships moving like a dark cloud across space. They didn't look like normal spacecraft at all. Instead, they were organic things that pulsed and writhed, covered in what looked like eyes and mouths. Worst of all, he could hear screaming coming through the radio, not from his own people, but from the ships themselves. "Sir, the Thrakari squadron is requesting permission to retreat," reported his communications officer. Robert was about to give the order when something impossible happened. A Thrakari warship, badly damaged and leaking atmosphere, suddenly changed course. Instead of fleeing to safety, it positioned itself directly between Robert's crippled cruiser and the attacking swarm vessels. "Thrakari ship on his edge, what are you doing?" Robert called over the radio. The reply came from Captain Korvax himself, the gruff warrior who had argued so much during the planning meetings. "Human friends are in danger. Thrakari do not abandon friends." Korvax's ship took hit after hit, its hull glowing red from enemy fire. But it held position, giving Robert's crew time to restart their engines. Just as the Honor's Edge was about to explode, 3 Quillen transport ships appeared out of nowhere. Robert couldn't believe what he saw next. The peaceful farmers, who had never fought a battle in their lives, were ramming their supply ships directly into swarm vessels to clear a path for the wounded Thrakari. "This is Petra from the Growing Light," came the small voice over the radio. "Korvax saved humans. Now we save Korvax." A Quillan engineer named Marcus sacrificed his own escape pod, using it to deliver emergency repair supplies to the Honor's Edge. 3 Delphine pilots formed a protective triangle around the rescue ships, their graceful vessels dancing between enemy fire like they were swimming through water instead of space. When the retreat was finally complete, Robert found himself in the medical bay alongside Korvax. The massive Thrakari warrior was covered in bandages, but his eyes were bright with something Robert had never seen before, not just respect, but genuine friendship. "Why?" Robert asked quietly. "Your ship could have escaped easily. Why risk your people for mine?" Korvax's translator struggled with his emotional words. "Because you came for us first. When elders abandoned all, humans chose to stand with abandoned. Now we stand with humans. This is what brothers do." Word of what happened at Vera Prima spread through the Alliance faster than any official report. Major Helen Cooper, commanding a mixed-species patrol group, noticed the change immediately. Her bridge crew had always worked together professionally, but now something deeper was happening. When her human navigator made a mistake that nearly sent them into an asteroid field, it was the crystalline repair specialist who caught the error and gently corrected it. When the Delphine medical officer collapsed from exhaustion, the gruff Thrakari security chief carried her to sick bay and stood guard while she rested. "It's like we're becoming one big family," Helen told her second-in-command, Commander Peter Johnson. "A very strange family," Peter replied with a smile, watching their Quillan supply officer teaching a group of human marines how to grow emergency food in their helmets. The battles that followed were unlike anything in galactic history. At the Siege of Harmony Station, human tactical flexibility merged perfectly with Thrakari courage. When swarm forces tried to board the station, human marines and Thrakari warriors fought side by side, covering each other's weaknesses. The Quillan provided more than just supplies. Their natural ability to organize complex systems made them perfect battlefield coordinators. Petra herself became legendary for managing supply lines under fire, somehow keeping every ship fed and armed no matter how chaotic the fighting became. The Delphine brought innovations nobody had expected. Their medical ships didn't just heal the wounded, they developed new biotechnology during battles, creating weapons that could disrupt the swarm's organic components. Dr. Marina, their chief scientist, figured out how to turn their healing rays into weapons that could cure the swarm's twisted biology back into normal matter. Most importantly, they were all learning from each other. Human pilots adopted Thrakari honor codes that made them fight harder for their wingmen. Thrakari warriors learned human tactics that let them think beyond simple charges into battle. Quillan farmers discovered they had courage they never knew existed. Delphine scientists found that their peaceful nature actually made them better at psychological warfare. The victories started small but grew larger. At the Battle of Twin Suns, they didn't just survive a swarm attack, they actually drove the enemy away. At Crystal Falls, they saved an entire system that the swarm had marked for consumption. Meanwhile, deep in their fortified systems, the elder races watched with growing unease. The ethereals, safe behind their energy barriers, monitored the battles through hidden sensors. "This is impossible," one ethereal told another as they observed the Alliance fleet destroying a swarm harvesting operation. "The young races lack the technology to challenge the swarm." "Perhaps," replied the other, "but they have something we have forgotten." "Which is?" "The willingness to die for strangers." The Zephyrians in their crystal cities were having similar discussions. Their ancient councils, which had ruled for millions of years, couldn't understand what they were seeing. "The humans should have been consumed by now," chimed one crystal lord. "Their weapons are primitive, their ships are small. Yet they keep winning," noted another. "How?" They had no answer. In all their millions of years of existence, they had never seen anything like the Alliance. Species working together not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Warriors dying to protect farmers. Farmers risking everything to save warriors. Scientists and engineers sharing their greatest secrets freely. Captain Lisa Morgan, fighting in her 10th battle since the Alliance formed, finally understood what was happening. As her ship flew through space surrounded by vessels from a dozen different worlds, all watching each other's backs, she realized they had discovered the swarm's greatest weakness. The enemy fed on isolation, on fear, on the kind of selfishness that made civilizations close their doors and hide. But the Alliance was the opposite of everything the swarm represented. They had become something new. Admiral Rebecca Hayes stood on the bridge of her flagship Unity, her gray hair showing the stress of 3 years of constant warfare. Around her, the massive Alliance fleet stretched as far as the eye could see. Human destroyers flew alongside Thrakari battleships. Quillen supply vessels moved in formation with Delphine medical ships. Representatives from 48 different species worked together on her bridge, their various languages creating a symphony of determination. "All ships report ready for the final assault," announced Commander Peter Johnson, who had become Rebecca's most trusted officer. His voice was steady, but she could see the fear in his eyes. Everyone knew this might be their last battle. Through the view screen, the Nexus loomed before them like a wound in space itself. The gravitational anomaly twisted reality around it, creating impossible colors and shapes that hurt to look at directly. This was the gateway between galaxies, the path the Void Swarm had used to enter their universe. And somewhere in that swirling chaos was the Swarm's core consciousness. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Emma Clark from the sensor station, "we're detecting massive movement inside the Nexus. The entire Swarm fleet is gathering for a final stand." Rebecca nodded grimly. Intelligence reports suggested that billions of Swarm entities were waiting inside the anomaly. Every ship they had consumed, every mind they had absorbed, every world they had devoured, all of it concentrated in one place. "This is it," she announced to the fleet. 3 years ago, the elder races abandoned us. They said we were too young, too weak, too foolish to matter. Today, we prove them wrong. The battle began with Captain Lisa Morgan leading the first wave. Her squadron of volunteers, made up of humans who had lost their families to the Swarm, dove straight into the Nexus itself. Their mission was simple but deadly: create a path for the main fleet, no matter the cost. "For everyone we've lost," Lisa broadcast as her ship disappeared into the swirling darkness. "For everyone we're trying to save." On the Nexus station itself, Major Christopher Lee coordinated the ground assault. His mixed-species commandos, human marines, Thrakari warriors, and Delphine infiltrators, fought through corridors that changed shape as they moved. The station was alive, pulsing with dark energy that tried to consume anyone who touched it. "Keep moving," Christopher shouted as a wall suddenly sprouted teeth and tried to bite his sergeant. "Don't let it get inside your head." Meanwhile, Rebecca watched as the space battle unfolded around her. The Swarm ships were unlike anything they had faced before. These weren't the scout vessels or harvesting units they had been fighting. These were the original entities, the ones that had consumed entire galaxies before arriving in theirs. "Admiral," called out Petra from the Quillen communication station, "we're losing ships faster than we can replace them." Rebecca could see it happening. Human cruisers were being torn apart by weapons that turned matter into shadow. Thrakari battleships, proud and strong, were being absorbed into larger Swarm entities. Even the quick Delphine vessels couldn't escape the reaching tendrils of dark energy. But something strange was happening too. As Alliance ships were destroyed, their crews didn't scream in terror like the Swarm expected. Instead, they used their final moments to save others. A human captain rammed his exploding destroyer into a Swarm ship to protect a Quillen transport. A Thrakari warrior detonated her fighter's reactor to clear a path for medical vessels carrying wounded allies. The Swarm's consciousness, spread across billions of entities, began to experience something it had never encountered before: confusion. Rebecca felt it too. Standing on her bridge, surrounded by beings from dozens of different worlds, she suddenly understood something that changed everything. The Swarm fed on isolation, on the fear that made creatures close themselves off from others. It grew strong by consuming civilizations that fought alone. But the Alliance was different. They weren't just fighting together, they had become something new. Human stubbornness mixed with Thrakari honor. Quillen compassion combined with Delphine wisdom. Every species contributed something unique, creating a unity that was stronger than the sum of its parts. "All ships," Rebecca broadcast on every frequency, "show them what we're really fighting for." The response was immediate and beautiful. Human ships moved to shield damaged alien vessels, even when it put them in danger. Thrakari fighters escorted wounded Quillen transports to safety, ignoring their own injuries. Delphine medical ships rushed into combat zones to rescue survivors, regardless of which species they were helping. The Swarm's collective consciousness recoiled. In all the galaxies it had consumed, it had never seen anything like this. Creatures willingly sacrificing themselves for others. Species working together instead of competing. Love triumphing over fear. For the first time in its existence, the Swarm hesitated. That moment of confusion was all the Alliance needed. Every ship fired at once, their combined weapons creating a beam of pure light that cut through the darkness like a sword. The energy wasn't just from their guns, it was from their unity, their refusal to abandon each other, their determination to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The swarm's scream echoed through space as its consciousness was torn apart. Not destroyed, but transformed. The darkness that had consumed so many worlds suddenly remembered what it was like to be individuals, to be free, to choose cooperation over consumption. As the swarm entities retreated through the nexus, sealing the gateway behind them, Rebecca received a message that made her smile despite her exhaustion. "Admiral Hayes," came a familiar voice over the communication system. It was the ethereal ambassador, the one who had coldly abandoned them 3 years ago. "Our barriers are lowering. We want to talk." One by one, the elder races emerged from their fortresses. The Zephyrians, the Corvani, the Network, all of them. They found a galaxy transformed. The younger species were no longer dependent clients begging for protection. They had become equals, united by shared sacrifice and mutual respect. The Granite Lords, who had hidden underground for 3 years, sent a simple message: "How do we join?" Rebecca, exhausted but victorious, made her final log entry: "They called us young and foolish for choosing to fight. They said we didn't understand the weight of deep time or the reality of survival. Maybe we didn't. But we understood something they had forgotten, that being civilized means never abandoning your friends when they need you most." The true Galactic Alliance was born that day, built not on power or ancient wisdom, but on a simple principle: no one gets left behind.